Hi there, my name is Renee Hobbs, and you're joining us for LSC 531, Information Competencies for Youth at the Harrington School of Communication and Media at the University of Rhode Island in the Department of Library and Information Studies. Today is June 18th, so that's kind of exciting, and that means that we are, in the middle of the semester, and we've been learning a lot, and we've been having a lot of fun, and I'll tell you, one of the things that's been most thrilling for me is how many of you talented LSC folks have decided to come with me on this crazy Twitter experiment. So today I welcome Lisa, Lindsay, Laura, Jenny, and Hi Min, and several of you have been pretty active in the Twitter sphere, and so let's just do a little reflection on what are you seeing in the Twitter sphere, and what are you loving now and hating now about our conversations via Twitter. Who'd like to kick us off?
Well, when I mentioned Google in my tweet, it went, viral for, any one of my tweets usually only goes to like 8 people who are following me, but it went to like over 60. I was just shocked.
Really?
Yeah. See, over 60.
So you are actually educating a whole lot of people.
Yeah. People I didn't even know in the education.
Wow.
Just took over and retweeted it. That was really cool.
They must have found something of good value in that tweet. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. That's pretty inspiring. Anybody else? Highs and lows of Twitter?
Well, I discovered that you can send personal messages through that. That was kind of cool this week.
Tell us how you do that.
I don't know. I found something that says personal messages, so I clicked on it.
It's right on top right.
Yeah, and that was great.
Or something, the button you can use.
But they have to be a follower.
Aha!
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it was good for communicating with my partner.
Good. Glad you discovered it. That's the thing about direct messages. You can only direct message someone if they follow you and you follow them. So that's the intimate sort of telephone part of Twitter, only available when you're both following each other. Cool. I wanted to show you a really interesting tool. I don't know if I have had a chance to demonstrate this, but I'm exploring tools that enable me to capture Twitter conversations, because that's sometimes helpful. And so if you click on my screen share now, I'm showing you a website called Seen, SEEN.co. What's really cool about it is that you can see here I'm basically I'm capturing the last 4 days of, it only lets me capture 4 days of conversation around a hashtag. But what's really cool is here's where we're at, in the last little bit of time since June 16th. And you can see lots of us are sharing information, talking, and kind of summarizing and wondering. I love, Hyman, you're wondering, right? So
I'm still wondering. I'll keep wondering.
These are the kinds of wonderings that help us learn from each other. So I actually am really pleased with the way that you are using the Twitter. And just on another front, of course, I'm mostly to manage the information flow in my life, I'm mostly only following the LSC 531 hashtag. So that's how I watch you during the week if you're commenting and participating. But I can actually see a more full documentation of evidence by looking at the list overall. And this is really cool because this helps me see, like Catherine is retweeting something from Overdrive. Overdrive's not using the LSC 531 hashtag, so I might have missed that. But it also helps me see your conversation more informally with each other and about life in general, right? So the only thing I would say is, like, for instance, Matthew, if you want me to see this really great WordPress piece that you posted, the best way to make sure that I'll see it is to put hashtag LSC531, because I might have missed that otherwise. So if you want me to see your tweet, make sure you use LSC531. You might not always need me to see everything, and it's really clear that you guys are using Twitter for your own relationships and your own personal learning outside of this class, and that's thrilling and fascinating, and what a cool, smart bunch of people I have the privilege to teach. So I guess if you look at the calendar, if you look at our website, let me see if I can find a way back to that website. If you look at our website for today, let's take a look at what's on tap. We're going to reflect on the reflective writing and your initial ideas about your research projects. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Penny Kittle's book love. Obviously, it's clear to me that you guys, many of you got a lot out of that book. We're going to practice some search strategies that you're going to use for an activity later on. And I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to riff on how I evaluate scholarly research in the area of adolescent literacy, which is the field that Penny Kittle is coming from. And then in terms of the non-synchronous activities, I guess I'll talk about those a little bit more at the end. We're digging into this part of the course where we're going to start to pay attention to how new knowledge is created. And so I can say, oh, you guys aren't even seeing what I'm seeing. Damn it, what's going wrong here? I just scrolled through my page and you didn't see that, did you? Why is that?
Well, we saw it.
Did you actually see me go to our class homepage then?
Yeah, it was scrolling up and down.
Ah, good, excellent. I'm so happy. Thank you. So we're gonna be moving into a part of the course where we start to take a look at what the research community, how the research community helps us do our work as practitioners better, and how we can use the insights gained from researchers as practitioners, and think a little bit of the relationship between educators, librarians, researchers, and media professionals. And so that's kind of where we're going with this activity. But just to check in on the reality of the situation. Welcome, Allison, and everybody else. Did you guys get an email writing? Do a thumbs up if you did.
Yes.
Yes? Yes, okay, good show. So I was pretty pleased with the quality of the reflective writing overall. Obviously, I'm paying a lot of attention to how you manage your reading for this course, because so much of what we're learning is coming through our reading. And of course, this week we had a lot of reading, right? We read the whole book, right, in 1 week. And obviously, managing reading is a fascinating experience in and of itself. I was really intrigued with Penny Kittle's suggestion of keeping a daily log of how many pages you read and how much you can read in 10 minutes and how many pages you can read in an hour. And that whole strategy seemed really smart around building the concept of stamina in readers. But let's go around the room to the students who are here for our synchronous session and identify one, if you will, one idea from Penny Kittle that was interesting, provocative, controversial, or important to you. I just introduced the concept of stamina and this measure of measuring it by noticing how many pages you can read in 10 minutes and then doing some multiplication and keeping a list of everything you read. Who'd like to go next? Something memorable or interesting or important from Penny Kittle's book, Love.
Something memorable that I found was that she asks for teachers to try to get kids more engaged with a buy-in concept, so having them maybe read something that isn't necessarily part of the Common Core. So I thought that was interesting and also controversial because as an English teacher, we're under this pressure to only read things of a certain lexile, and I think we're losing a lot of kids as a result of that. So I really liked that her strategy of starting kids off with something that they enjoy and then working from there and pushing them to buy into more complex literature.
Oh, Lindsay, I'm so glad you mentioned it because sometimes we don't fully appreciate just how radical and controversial Penny Kittle really is, right? So her approach is, we could say, anti-Common Core in the sense of her embracing non-complex texts when the Common Core wants to push us toward complex texts. So thank you for pointing out that Penny Kittle's a radical girl, and there's nothing about her ideas that are taken for granted or routine in most education settings yet. So this is a very much fringe idea for just the reasons you described. Thanks for sharing.
My takeaway from this was being okay with admitting the fact that you know your students aren't reading the texts you're giving them. Because, like Lindsay, I'm also a former English teacher, and I knew that for a very long time, and all of my colleagues knew that, and we sort of would devise all these strategies for figuring out how to catch them, and without being able to admit that, like, maybe that means we should be rethinking the strategies, or rethinking, rather than coming up with all these catch 'em strategies, we should be rethinking the approach. And I don't think that my department head's going to go for it, but it's nice to be able to think about some way to, like, maybe meet halfway, you know?
Yeah. I really like your point about how this is like my husband will sometimes say to me, you know, denial is not a river in Egypt, Renee, right? You know, so there's this sense that this is a hard thing for us to own up to. And if we have children, it's especially, I remember it was very challenging for me when my kids went into high school and I saw their reading diminish, and it scared me, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we like look that square in the eye further, which is she asked us to take responsibility for it, right? She asked us to find ways to bring them back, and I feel like for lots of reasons, like you say, that might be challenging to do, but it's a pretty cool idea. Other thoughts on what you got out of your top 10? What one idea from your top 10 ideas was meaningful to you in reading Penny Kittle?
Well, I have one. It wasn't on my top 10. It was on my top 20. I had a hard time whittling this down. But it really is interesting to me how in elementary school we have silent reading time, and then it just disappears in middle school and high school. And her school-wide reading break initiative was fantastic, and I loved how some of the teachers who admitted they didn't read and it wasn't important, blah blah, and then they converted and they started to read, and that was just like, it works. So why aren't we doing this more in our schools, in our high schools?
Yeah, Yeah, it was pretty powerful, actually. The evidence that she showed about how it works. I'll tell you one thing that I was really in love with. One little strategy that I just thought was so smart, and I really wanted her to have a photo, but she didn't. And I thought, you know, pity on the editor who didn't suggest a photo. On page 122, she talks about how she creates a map, a book map on the back wall. So as she starts moving away from being the one to guide kids into choices and allowing kids to map the works they've read and to find, you know, similarities, themes, and clusters. So she describes this idea of creating a book map on the back wall of the classroom. It's almost, she says, like a map of the book talks, but the students are responsible for creating this, and they show by their placement of their books on the map, like where they see connections. Like if you like the Hunger Games, I'll put, you know, this other book that's similar near it. And I thought it's really a neat way to honor students' choices by mapping those choices visually on the wall. I thought that could be pretty compelling, and I could see how building over the months would be, you know, a nice testament to the initiative of the students. Any other ideas that grabbed you?
I have to say that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Just going on the mapping thing that she did. One of the things that I thought was fantastic, and if I ever have a school library for young adults, I would love to do this, is to get the notebooks and put the topics courage, you know, struggle, first love, or whatever it is. I would love to have a whole table of notebooks and encourage students to just write a brief little synthesis of the book that you read and why you think it's related to courage or first love or whatever it is, and whether you liked the book or what it meant to you, and then to kind of build this notebook library of students, and then students could go and look at them and they could say, oh, I want to read this book, or I'm going to add to this title. I just thought that was a fantastic idea. I was really inspired by that.
Thank you for sharing
one
that.
thing
That's beautiful.
Too that was interesting was how some kids have a fixed idea about whether they're a good reader or a bad reader, and that when you ask them, are you a reader, and they say, oh, I'm a terrible reader or something, that you really do have to do a deeper dive into that discussion and try to get, you know, unpack it, I think was the way it was described in the book. And I think that's really important, to listen to what students are saying about their reading inclinations, because it's not always because they're, you know, not a good reader. It's probably as suggested that they haven't found the right book.
Right.
So I think it's really important to listen to what they're saying and not allow them to put themselves into a category. Just keep pushing the envelope with them.
Oh, Lisa, I'm so glad you mentioned that. One of the videos that I pulled for this week is a very beautiful, it's a 5-minute video of a boy who reflects on his antipathy toward reading and how he gradually recovers his interest in reading. And it's very poignant, it's very personal, and I feel like honoring that with kids is a really important thing. So again, when they don't have to hide that that's how they feel, then it's okay to explore that and then to find ways around that to move on. Other thoughts on questions that this book raised for you, perhaps, or problems, frustrations, challenges that this book offered for you?
Yeah, I was wondering how Penny could spend all that time and energy to be personal with every student, seems like. you know, I really admire her dedication, but I was wondering where she found that,
Simon, I
you
was
know,
thinking.
time and energy.
Yeah.
She does it so
Yeah.
well and
Yeah, she did describe.
with everybody.
Yeah,
Like,
she said
Yes,
it took her
she
2 weeks.
described how she stands in the hall. Just
Yeah.
talks to everybody.
Right.
He's passionate
I
about
read.
what he's doing.
Yeah, maybe that makes it easier.
Yeah, I think so.
I was just so impressed. I couldn't imagine how she could spend all that time, and she really got to know each personality. And I kept thinking, does she only have an hour class with these kids, or is she, you know, do they come back, or what was the time period? Because it seemed like she accomplished so much in short periods of time.
Yeah, I was surfing around researching today, and I found a really interesting strategy because this question's been on my mind because she doesn't write with so much precision about her classroom management and her instructional management. You know, there's a lot of we have to guess at some of her instructional management strategies, but there's an instructional strategy that I read about today that I thought reminded me of Penny Kittle. It's called 2 by 10, and it's actually really well researched, and the scholarly evidence on this is unbelievable. Try this, it's just amazing. 2 by, and this could work in a library or in a classroom or maybe in other parts of life as well. 2 minutes of attention to your most problematic students, 2 minutes a day for 10 days, reduces behavior problems in a statistically significant way. 2 minutes a day, 10 days. That's 2 weeks. 2 minutes. And I just think that's really interesting because I think what most adolescents are really craving is just attention, right? And so customizing a book selection to them is a form of attention, asking them about their interests and then being respectful of those interests and helping them make a choice, that's attention. And adolescents respond really well to attention, even if it's 2 minutes a day. So that was really intriguing to me. And so you might just pick out the 5 kids who need 2 minutes of attention, right? The 1 kid that you're going to work on for the next 2 weeks, right? But I thought that was really intriguing.
This made me curious enough that I talked to one of my administrators today who's going to be the vice principal for the upcoming senior class. And I had taught 60 of her kids when they were in sophomore year. So I know and quite a few more of them. So I proposed to her today the idea of me doing an independent study with 1 kid in the library who might not otherwise graduate because they had failed an English class, to see if she and I could pick a kid, because I'm curious about this. And like you guys were saying, I'm struggling to figure out how it could work, you know, with our 120 student load. It's just hard to picture. But I'm curious enough about it and really inspired enough about the possibility that I want to see if it works with 1 kid, like how this actually plays out in reality rather than in like the world of somebody who's been doing this for 20 years and, you know, has a school that's set up for it. So we talked about the possibility of me independent studying with 1 kid, letting him pick the books, doubling the amount of reading that he normally would do in an English class, and like seeing what happens. So we'll find out.
Case study is a tried and true methodology. I think that's a pretty cool idea. So let's just say that after reading Penny Kittle, you kind of wanted to learn more about this crazy idea. Why don't you take 2 minutes right now and write down on a scratch piece of paper the keywords that you would begin to start your inquiry beyond Penny Kittle. Okay? What keywords are going to help you learn more about the ideas that she advanced? Take 2 minutes right now and start jotting down some keywords or phrases. You get one more minute. Okay, looks like it looks like you're ready. So, how about if you guys try, I don't know if you've ever done this, has anybody ever tried opening up the chat room in Google Plus?
Yes.
Okay, if you go to the far left side of your screen and you kind of hover over there, you're going to see open a vertical menu will pull up, and the chat area is the blue box. And why don't you guys try that out by, oh, hi, man, you were already ahead of me. My goodness, girl, that was excellent. I see Jennifer, I see Allison, I see Laura. Okay,
Hi.
you guys have all found the group chat. Now, there's our Padlet wall. Why don't you type in a couple of keywords, and we see what similarities and differences we find in the keywords for searching and learning more about what Penny Kittle was talking about. So go check out the Padlet.
On the Padlet or the chat window?
Yeah, so click on that URL that I just sent you, and you'll see a Padlet wall. And I see, oh, Jenny has got some keywords searching. Just start plopping your keywords onto our wall, and let's see what we build together. Lisa, I'm moving yours up a little bit here. Ooh, cool. All right. Why don't you guys talk me through this list for a little bit? Who'd like to go first? What similarities and what differences do you see in the list that we created?
Choosing the right book, student book selection, book talks.
Independent reading comes up. Got it. Okay, that's actually pretty fascinating. Of course, we're pretty well aware of how our ability to keyword search relates to the stuff we already know, right? So that's how we build our keyword searches. We use the stuff we already know to generate keyword searches. So you can see on my list, I've included a phrase, I don't think anybody else used this phrase, called low-high. Does anybody know what that means?
No.
Or high-low. Sometimes it's
I've only
known that
seen
way.
that in relation to like YA books being labeled high-low, like high interest, low literacy, or
That's
low.
what yeah, that's what it means. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a label for high interest, low literacy, and so So talk me through why would that be relevant to what we've been talking about? Books that are high interest, low literacy, rated by the publisher that way. What's the connection?
Does that have something to do with the content? Like, I don't know, the content of a book that a teen would choose is going to be something like Pretty Little Liars, where there's not much literature in there, but it's high interest, and there's 13 different books in the series, and I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yeah. Yeah, and so make the connection to Penny Kittle's argument. Why is high-low? Why are high-low books important for her?
Because the
and
kids,
her approach.
because kids who aren't great readers could build confidence in those high-interest books, presumably.
Yeah, and what she wants to do is use that as a stepping stone. As they become more confident, then give her students more challenging works, right? So they don't get stuck in the ghetto of high-low, but that it's a stair-step approach. So I think that's a really fascinating idea, and I think thinking a little bit about the implications of that, from connecting the dots from what we talked about earlier this semester, is also kind of relevant. So the idea is trying to really find out what your students are interested in order that you can explore that. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I'm going to share my screen again. Let me share my screen again. Uh-oh. I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to do a little search. We're going to do a little search strategies, okay? Because I want to talk a little bit about how we find scholarly articles and how we evaluate them. So I guess here I am at the University of Rhode Island. Can you see me at the library now? You can see me at the library, right?
Yes.
I've already been playing around with a really cool journal that I like a lot. So sometimes when I'm searching, I go right to a place where I know there's going to be quality stuff. And that's because over the 30 years that I've been playing in this field, I'm kind of aware of what the top tier journals are. So Penny Kittles is writing in the field of literacy education, and the top tier journal for that field is called Reading Research Quarterly. So I'm going to search within this publication and see what do I find in independent reading. And what's kind of cool is that because this is a top tier journal, I kind of, I don't have to do a lot of credibility evaluation, do I, right? I can assume that the experts and the editors who edited this collection have done some careful reflection on their learning. And I scroll down and I see an article called "Just Students Want to Read in Middle School Classrooms." And I'm noticing, I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you see it here when I go like that? Does it get bigger?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that it's way back in 2001. Oh my goodness. That's fascinating. Here's another piece by my friend David Rian King. He's a cool guy. He's a big name in the field of literacy education. He's got a piece from 2000 called "An Experiment Investigating the Use of Multimedia Book Reviews to Increase Elementary Students' Independent Reading." And independent reading with speech feedback. You know, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of suspicious of reading back all the way to 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to suggest what I could do differently?
Put in a date.
Where would I do that? How would I do that? Aha! Over here, you see in the corner, I can kind of move the publications. I'll make it to 2008. So here I get reading in a second language for Chinese teenagers, prediction of 5-year-olds with hearing loss. I get nothing. When I put in a date, it gets less. So that means I need to change my keyword. What would you like to propose that I put in next? Scrap independent reading. Propose another phrase, please.
Adolescence and reading.
Or reading comprehension.
Okay.
Only 11. Wow.
This is going to be, this isn't right. None of these things are about independent reading, right? Or reading on your own, although maybe I'm kind of interested in this one. This one says, From Chasm to Conversation, Bridging Divides in Research on Adolescent Literacies, and it's from 2010. So I'm going to go see if I can read the abstract and see if it's any good, right? Okay. Oh, okay. It's a book review. Yawn. All right. Well, that's okay. It's a book review. It's a book review of two books. One called the Handbook of Adolescent Literacy Research, and one called Meeting the Challenge of Adolescent Literacy. Actually, that might be worth it might be worth the read, because I'm going to kind of get a synthesis of the adolescent literacy field, right? And see if there are any names or authors whose work is interesting to me, right? Now, one of the things that I think is really complicated for, let me see if I can go back here. One of the things I think that's really complicated for practitioners who enter into the scholarly conversation is that it's really important to understand that it is a conversation, right? And that scholars are building on each other's work, talking to each other, critiquing each other, and sharing ideas. And so, actually, to find a meaningful piece of scholarship usually means I have to read a whole lot so that I understand the conversation. That's why many of us use the strategy of going back to the bibliography, and when we find a good article, right, we then go back to see who is that scholar reading and what are the influences. That doesn't work so well when I go look at Penny Kittles, because her pieces are her sources are predominantly non-scholarly sources, right? She's writing with a practitioner voice from a practitioner point of view, and there's only a few sources that are scholarly. But I do see that in her list is another really cool journal called the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy. So my first strategy when I enter into a discourse community is to try to identify the top tier journals in the field and then look at the scholarship that is coming together around a group of scholars. In this world, the major big name is Kelly Gallagher. And who's read her great book, Redecide? Has anybody read that book? So if you're interested in learning more about independent reading and projects and programs like Kelly, like Penny Kittle brought to us, Kelly Gallagher is another really important name. And you can follow her on Twitter too, by the way, right? Because she Twitters prolifically and is a real advocate for this kind of independent reading. Now, I wonder, do you think that this approach to teaching English is widely appreciated in the school library media community?
Probably not.
Why do you say that?
I mean, my impression of my daughter's high school librarians is that they're a little rote, a little, I don't know, they're not providing a lot to students. I don't know, that's just my impression from what I've seen of what she's watched of the videos that they provide on how to do research and things like that. But yet I haven't been in the library when they're all there, so I don't know.
When we go search around in the LIS discourse community, we're not going to find a lot about this approach. Why not?
I think it's not an approach that's being used in that many schools, so probably a lot of school library media specialists don't have a lot of experience with it. They're used to the way things are traditionally run, and so they've had to kind of mold themselves to fit that.
Yeah.
Also, I can't be alone as a school librarian with having 2,000 students to one me. So,
Why not?
well, I would love to do this with every kid. It's not a reasonable approach, for one person and 2,000 kids.
No. School librarian could never do this program alone, right?
No.
Partnership with an English teacher would be absolutely vital. But didn't you find yourself wondering why Penny Kittle never referred to her, rarely referred to her school librarian?
Yeah, she occasionally mentioned that the school library, that she would get books from the library, but that it was so much more important for her to have a library in her classroom. And I was thinking, like, why?
Yeah. I found myself wondering that too.
Well, are those the types of books that a school librarian is going to be collecting? Probably not. They're more focused on the research, the books that students need for reference materials, probably.
I don't know. In our library, it's 50-50 in terms of circulation. It's 50% popular fiction and 50% researchy nonfiction. But I don't know if that's typical at all.
I think it's actually a really interesting research question to wonder what might be the opinions of school library specialists about this crazy idea of interest-driven, independent reading as a way to build, reading stamina. That's a cool research question, and maybe you will stumble across researchers or practitioners who have written about this topic and maybe find the discourse community inside LIS of people who care about this. I would be fascinated about that. Okay, so now it's steaming along, and I've kind of introduced a couple of ideas about what criteria I use when I search for information. When I search inside my own discipline, I can be pretty comfortable reading a piece and evaluating it all by itself. But when I'm reading across disciplines, I like to be able to rely on external markers of expertise as evidenced by the status of the journal or the amount of citations that an author has been published or something like that. So I'm going to take you back to our class website. Let's see if I can do that right now. And I want to talk a little bit about something I want you to start working on, because in a way, most of you sent me emails with some really, really cool ideas of things you are interested in working on for your final project. And it's really clear that you have a lot of good ideas. So we're going to do two things. For next week. First of all, now I'm going to review the non-synchronous activities for next week. I want you to read this short 5-minute video called Digital Literacy Narrative. After viewing the video, calculate your own reading rate by discovering the number of pages you can comfortably read in 10 minutes. Then create a weekly reading recording sheet for yourself and maintain the chart for everything that you read in 1 week. And you don't have to post the actual chart, but share what you learn as you keep track of your reading life for 7 days. This might be a harder project than you think, because if you're like me, I've got 5 books going right now, right? And not to mention the reading that I do for my, my professional work, my writing, my research. So this might be challenging, but see if you can find a way to hold on to keeping track of your reading for 1 week, 7 days. Do you guys have any questions about that first project?
Nope.
It should be fun. Now, what I'd like you to do next is share a response to your reading of Penny Kittle's book club on the Flipgrid and comment on the insights shared by others. Then, discuss your top 10 list with your partner using some form of text messaging dialogue. That could be Twitter, or that could be your text messaging on your phone, or that could be your text messaging on your Google chat. All I did over here was list the partners from your Padlet wall. I was so impressed with your Padlet wall. If you guys haven't had a chance to go check those out, it's like speed dating in terms of learning cool strategies. You guys did a great job with those summaries of all the things you learned about Google searching and technology stuff. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about number 2? Yes? No?
No.
All comfortable? Okay. Now, the next one requires you to see what we're doing for next week. We just have 3 readings, 3 scholarly readings from my colleague Julie Quiro at the University of Rhode Island. Uh-oh. Who's Okay, there we go. Okay, thanks so much for muting yourself there. So, which of you guys have met? Which of you have met Julie Quiro? Yes? No? Have you met her yet? Oh, okay. So let me. Oh no, you have not. Let me explain. Julie Quiro is one of the leading researchers in the United States on online reading comprehension. She was awarded the top researcher under the age of 40 by the International Reading Association. And one of the reasons why I moved to the University of Rhode Island to take this job was the opportunity to collaborate with Julie. This summer we're running a summer institute on digital literacy. We have over 100 educators from 15 states and 10 countries coming to join us for a week in Providence, July 13th through 18th, and you can learn more about that on my website at mediaeducationlab.com. Julie Quiro is a really amazing researcher, and she has done a lot of work with middle school students to understand not just the reading comprehension experience on a screen, but more importantly and more relevant for librarians, Julie has studied the way that kids ask a question, generate keywords, how they evaluate results, what happens when they read, compare, contrast, and synthesize information to solve a real problem. And she's looked at that really carefully with research funding that she's received from the U.S. Department of Education, and her work is really impressive. So now you know she's like a friend of the Harrington School, a friend of the Library and Information Studies. She sat with our Library and Information Studies faculty when we worked the curriculum, the new curriculum that will launch in the fall. She's a real creative researcher and an asset to our community. So now I'm just going back to my homepage. You're going to have to go online to find these two research sources. I'm not giving you a PDF and making it easy for you. I'm intentionally making you go to the databases and find them. This one from Troy Hicks, I'm sharing with it. It's called Reading and Writing Ebooks and Immersive Texts. It's from the National Writing Project. That one you can just click on and find. But I want you to find and read these two pieces. But before you do, listen to the podcast with Julie Quiro before you begin. I think it's a 12-minute podcast, and you just click on it right here. I'll just play the first minute or two.
This is the voice of literacy, where literacy researchers, teachers, principals, parents, and policymakers share and discuss how literacy research informs practice. Join the bi-weekly podcast and discussion forums. My name is Dr. Betsy Baker, Professor of Literacy Studies at the University of Missouri. This week we hear from Dr. Quiro, Assistant Professor of Reading at the University of Rhode Island. She does research on how we comprehend online information. Welcome, Dr. Quiro.
Well, thank you very much. Good to be here.
Good to have you. First, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got interested in online reading comprehension?
Sure. I actually started out as a special education teacher and worked quite a bit with kids with learning disabilities and some emotional issues. And I also have two children of my own. And as I started watching both my students and my kids, I have always been interested in the strategies that good readers use to make sense of whatever information they read. Mm-hmm. And I started realizing two things about technology and the internet. One, the incredible potential that it had to engage kids, the opportunity that readers had to control what they read and where they went, and the potential for supporting students, especially those that seem to be kind of disenchanted with more traditional offline text. Mm-hmm. At the same time, there seemed to be this incredible challenge that the internet posed for students being able to read deeply and think critically with respect to being able to locate information, how to organize all the information that they find, and how to use it to really start to make sense of their world.
Okay, so I bet you can appreciate how reading Dr. Julie Quiro's work is going to be useful to us in thinking more deeply about adolescent literacy, interest-driven learning. So listen to the podcast for 12 minutes before you read the assigned reading. And then after the assigned reading, select a PDF annotation tool and use it to annotate one of the course readings. You can choose to annotate this one, or the Troy Hicks piece. Okay? So in your annotations, model the active reading process by summarizing, asking questions, predicting, synthesizing, and connecting to your existing knowledge and experiences. Let's see what questions you have about this. Who's got questions?
Never done that before. Is there an example or something that we can look at?
Yes. Who can explain what is a PDF annotation tool? Anybody can explain that? Who's used a PDF annotation tool? No?
Can you say that again? I can't. You were a little bit garbled. Has anybody what?
Has anybody ever used? Who's got their sound on? Jenny, I'm going to mute you. Hold on. Okay, so a PDF annotation tool. Anybody ever used one before? No. So no. Oh, so you guys are all PDF annotation tool virgins. Okay, so check it out. Here's what they are on that link. Let's see if I can take you there. Come on, baby. There we go. Here's a really nice citation here's a really nice tool from the University of Virginia Health Science Library. How do I annotate my PDF files? Students in the School of Medicine have found some free applications useful for adding and saving annotations in PDF files. So there's a Windows tool, right, called the PDF Exchange Viewer. And there's a little instruction. I guess you can see from the screenshot what a PDF annotation tool is, right? It allows you to mark up a PDF. So for instance, we see in this International Journal of Epidemiology, the reader annotated this passage by writing what is considered a heavy user, right? Now what's really cool is if you have a Macintosh computer, you don't really need any special software because you can essentially double-click on any PDF tool and automatically open it in preview, and then you can use the annotation button. Let me see if I can show you this on my own screen right now. I saved Julie Quiro's piece to desktop. I'm now modeling exactly what I want you to do, right? I think. Maybe not. I thought I saved it to the desktop. Uh-oh, where did it go? I thought I saved it to the desktop. Let's see here. Quiro. Where did I put that thing? Darn it. I know I downloaded it. Where the heck did it go? Grr. What happened to it? All right, so I'm going to pull up a different, here we go. I'll pull up a different one. There's one. Okay, here's a piece I've been reading recently. My two friends, Carrie Bazalgette and David Buckingham. I've got the PDF in front of me, right? And now I can annotate this article by looking, as I read, I have the
PDF. At least I can't.
You can't see the PDF?
No.
Oh, darn. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know. Let me, I must have to tell, let me just go back here and see. I've got all kinds of windows open here. Oh, yeah, thank you for noticing that. Let me go back. Now I'm going to share my screen again. There's my PDF. Okay, good show. So now can you see it? It looks like this. Can you see it on your screen now?
Yes.
Good show. So this is from July 2013 of a scholarly journal called Literacy. The article's called Literacy, Media, and Multimodality, A Critical Response. And these are two friends of mine, Carrie Bazalgette and David Buckingham. They're going to take down this topic of multimodality, right? And I can use a variety of tools, like I can use a highlighting tool, right, to identify how multimodality is finding its way into policy documents, right? And I can use a little sticky note like this and ask a question. Do you see how it pops up a little like sticky note and go, why do some scholars and because that's something I'm writing about right now, right? And so when I see this little yellow call-out button, I can open it up and see my annotation. So PDF annotation is a really useful way to practice active reading. And I was really excited when I saw that in Penny Kittle's book, she has kids do this too. Where is that? Somewhere, oh yeah, annotations, page 66. She has kids annotate a PDF file or a page of text as her strategy. So I want you to practice using a PDF annotation tool and see if you can put yourself and your active reading strategy into that document and just allow yourself the luxury of summarizing, synthesizing, wondering, asking questions, and being an active reader. What questions do you have about that activity? It's clear, right? It's not too hard, it's a pretty good diagnostic.
So then are we going to post our article somewhere, or?
Yep. So let me go page. Uh-oh. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to go back to the page, and you can see I'm going to make. So after reading the assigned reading, select a PDF annotation tool and use it to annotate one of the readings. In your annotation, model the active reading process by summarizing, asking questions, predicting, synthesizing, and connecting to your existing knowledge. Now, and then you upload that PDF document to your WordPress website. And then your final activity, and this is really a place of exploration for you, maybe in relation to your final project, find and read a scholarly article on your own. Use Google Scholar and or a library database. Search, find, and read a high-quality scholarly article on a relevant topic of interest for you in relation to what you're thinking about for your final paper or creative project. And tweet about what you learn using the LSC 531 hashtag. That's the entirety of your work for next week. What questions do you have?
Renee, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is everybody else hearing double?
Yes. So let's mute our microphone.
So my question is, I just clicked on the Troy Hicks link because I wanted to make sure that I could get to everything, and I just get to this reading and writing ebooks and immersive texts page, and I'm not clear what the article is that we are supposed to read.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's like a 2-paragraph thing, and that's it. There's some links though.
There's a link within it, but that brings us to an NPR story.
Renee, I think you're muted.
Oh, thank you for. I've got that feedback thing going on. It's killing me. All right, hold on. Okay, so yeah, thank you. I'm still being okay. There we go. Yeah, so I'll correct that link, Allison. Thank you for calling that to my attention. So I'll right after this class I'll fix that link so it goes right to where I want you to read. What other questions do you have about this idea? You understand that this is the beginning of you now moving into this phase of independent research and exploration.
So when we post the PDF, are you actually asking us to summarize what we're reading on the article? Oh, okay.
Nope, just post the PDF.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Okay, let me try again here. I'm going to mute Jenny. We're definitely having some technical issues tonight. Can you hear me now? Oh, you can. Okay, good show. Yeah, so I'm not asking you to write anything on your WordPress. I'm just asking you to post the PDF that's annotated. I want to see how you do with this process of writing, directly writing on the PDF. I want to see what that feels like. I want you to experiment with that. I want you to see if you like doing that or don't like doing that. I want you to notice what happens to your reading as you actively annotate. Okay? So this week is the first week where you're beginning to now step out into territory and do your own independent reading. You guys kind of get these synergies there, right? This book's all about independent reading. You're doing some independent reading, right? So you get to choose what to read, but I do want you to make some careful choices. So I want you to find something that's high quality, and I want you to tweet about what you learn, right? So I can begin to see where you're going as you start your exploration. All right, so next week, our topic is kind of drilling down on this topic of what is reading comprehension, what is reading online, how does it relate to interest, to motivation, and to the practices of searching, inquiring, and finding resources. So we're kind of tying together some threads of search practices with reading comprehension, with adolescent literacy. So I think it should be fun. I think we have about, we have actually up to 20 minutes for kind of free conversation about your projects. And you guys have some really, you have proposed some really cool ideas. Would anybody like to share something you're thinking about doing for your final project? And then invite us to comment or ask questions or just go, ooh, wow. Who'd like to go first?
Allison, I'm throwing you out there, but I thought you had good ideas.
Let me mute. I unmuted. Can everybody hear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no more feedback. Thank you. I'm trying to decide between two. Either I've been thinking about doing a major overhaul on my school library's website, which is pretty awful right now, and creating a webpage for streaming video so that teachers can find and share useful educational video sources, changing up the way that I've designed the website entirely so that the main functions, and this kind of came out of one of the readings from 2 weeks ago, the main functions of the website help kids choose good search strategies, like putting our databases link front and center along with the catalog link rather than sort of having them off to the side. So just sort of some redesign of website that can potentially maximize kids' use of the electronic resources. And then the other is something I've also been thinking about and kind of came up with our credibility reading about changing the way that we teach about plagiarism and ethical use of information at the school, changing it from not teaching it really until after it happens and the kid has gotten in trouble and dealing with it on a case-by-case basis, to creating a proactive lesson that I can post on the library website that teachers, including me, and teachers from other departments can use to teach the kids, and also to have it be there so that families can access it, probably only after their kid gets in trouble and they're told to look at it. But at least there'll be something that they can look at to try and understand, especially because in our school there's a lot of cultural difference surrounding how information is used, and I think a lot of families don't know what the standards are now or what the standards are in the U.S. as compared to where they come from. So those are my two ideas.
Cool.
I'm not really married to either one over another.
Any thoughts, comments? So The fascinating problem, Allison, is that your first project is about user interface. Your second project is about plagiarism. They're both questions and they're both really relevant to your workplace. Who else would like to talk about a project you're thinking about for this class?
Well, I kind of woke up this morning and just came up with this idea. We've been having a problem with summer reading, and working with the schools, trying to make sure that we have enough books available and everything like that. And I'm wondering why it's such a struggle for the two libraries to kind of work together. So I was thinking about the stuff that's in Penny Kittle's book and kind of integrating all of it and getting kids to read more volume-wise and do book talks and things like that. So I'm thinking about doing a proposal where the public library and the high school work together and kind of offer a class and develop curriculum for a summer reading class where the kids could sign up and get credit and then use different digital literacies to communicate with each other and with the librarians and just kind of keep a kind of dialogue about books and things like that, and see if there's a way that we can kind of build a bridge between the two, between the two organizations to see if we can kind of work together, because ultimately our goal is the same. We want to put good books in the hands of kids and make them lifelong readers. So that's kind of where I'm going.
Jen, I think that is a really, really interesting question. I really again, what is our? We were doing fine, and okay, there we go. I think that's a really cool project. I'm really intrigued about the book talks. Those of you who had me last semester know that I think book talks are awesome. We actually did some stuff around that, and I think it's a cool idea to provide a credit-based experience that happens in the public library but actually supports the needs of kids who need some remedial support. I think it's a really creative idea, and that kind of collaboration I think would be pretty exciting. Thanks for sharing that. One more, and then I'll let you go. Somebody boldly state what you guys aren't committed to doing any of these things. We're still in the active brainstorming phase, right? You may 2 weeks from now change your topic altogether. That's okay. Don't worry about it. This is not a marriage. You're just exploring.
I know, because I'm freaking out that I don't have a topic.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We all find our topic finds us. Let's start exploring, but who's going to be exploring what?
I don't know if anyone can hear me. I'm having a lot of garbly feedback from anyone speaking. Okay. I was thinking of doing something along the lines of collection development and how school libraries are maintained and managed. And that sounds really broad, so I'm thinking of maybe taking one piece of that, like young adult literature, or a type of media like film, or some other kind of subsection of an entire collection, and then
Cool.
talk about developing that. Yeah, collection development and
One of the
management.
things about that is that's our next book. You know, Lisa, that's why it's kind of relevant. Because we're going to be reading a little bit about needs assessment, collection development, evaluation of school library collections, looking really carefully at that, and that topic gets handled in a pretty nice way in the book that we're reading next. So it's cool for you to explore that topic and maybe like focus in one of the number of ways you described. All right, so we've gotten to the end of our class. Let me just open up the floor if there's anybody who has any last questions or comments. Okay, so an hour and or so in LSC 531 with the fabulous students of the Harrington School of Communication Media, Department of Library and Information Studies, Allison, Hyman, Jane, Jennifer, Laura, Lindsay, and Lisa. If you haven't had a chance to look at your Padlet walls that you co-created with your partner, do look those over. They're smart, they're creative, they're thought-provoking, and I'm sure you got the Twitter about Catherine Damiani's YouTube video. Catherine, we are enjoying having you in our class symbolically in your YouTube tweet, so do take a look at Catherine's YouTube commentary as she joins us for class via YouTube. Thank you so much for being my synchronous students, and a big shout out to my non-synchronous students. Now I'm getting to know you a little bit better through your beautiful WordPress documents and through your great Twitter conversation. Let's keep Twittering all week, shall we? And see if we can keep learning and growing together. All right, thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.